Hi, everybody. I know we'll get a few more people in, so I'll let them in as they come, but welcome. Week before Thanksgiving, just to remind everybody, there is no class next week because that is Thursday, Thanksgiving. So, and I have the assignments I've taken a look at and moved a few things around. So please look at the modules again to be sure you've got those all up to date. Because I'd had a couple of things with some different dates on them that I realized were a bit overlapping. Anyway, I'm going to share screen. And go over to here. Here we are. Okay. All right. Well, we're getting near the end, guys. We've got a lot. We've done a lot, but we are already here. It's showing that next week will be canceled, but we are here on the new products page is what I wanted you to read about, and global. And I think that's I actually teach international marketing. So I have to say, this is one of my favorite modules. I find international marketing fascinating, not only because it is reaching out across international lines, but you do so in a way where you fully look at the marketing opportunities, the culture, the societal norms, the language differences, the way that men and women are treated and their beliefs. All of these things matter. And they matter in a way that, it can lead to success or not having success. Yeah, Jed?
Yeah, so I just had a quick question too. So for next week, then we're not like scheduled to have any homework over Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, what I have is I do have a discussion that's due, but that's really about it. I'm kind of giving you, just look at the classes and we're just kind of moving. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so I saw everything.
Go ahead.
So that's the only assignment that we have to do for that week, and then that should be it, right?
Correct.
Got
That
it.
is correct. And then the only other thing is just if your group wants to meet, but that's
Sounds good.
up to you because there's no group assignment due that week.
Appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much for your help.
No, you bet. It's just, we got to all have a little time off. You all work pretty hard. So hopefully you can enjoy next week a little bit more with just sort of, but do look at the B2B and this push-pull marketing. Those are two things that I'd like you to better understand, because actually I believe push-pull is one of the questions it might be one of the questions final, and I'll double check. As we're sort of getting near the end here, we are going to have, first off, by the way, I've looked at a lot of your retail stuff. They look really good. And thank you. You all put a lot of effort into the retail programs. I'll finish up grading everybody's this week for sure. It takes me a while because I have to, get into the MP4 and watch it. And it just takes a bit. So it's a little slower than some of the others to grade. But and I pay a lot of attention to it because you guys put a lot of work into it. So I wanted to be sure of that. Anyway, all right. So you guys can see my screen, right? Everything's good here?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So excuse me, as we move forward, we really only have next week where it's literally just kind of do this discussion, but I would like you to just quickly go through these. These are not long, it's not difficult. And then this is where your team project is due, December 5th. And we are going to have a class because this is going to be where we prep for the final. I'm going to run through a lot of the key things that I hope that you've learned over the course of this class, this quarter, and help you to kind of guide you where you want to go for the final. Okay, so don't miss that class, or at least be sure to look at the recording of it, because it will be an opportunity to give you a bit of a leg up on what to study. The final is open book. So it's in that regard, it's good that you can just look things up. And I don't mind that. I always find that to be kind of successful, because I know for me, you remember I don't know if when you guys were little kids, when I was a kid and I would ask a definition of something, my dad would hand me the dictionary and said, look it up. And one of the reasons that was so successful, even though it used to really kind of piss me off, is that when I looked it up, it forced it into my brain a little bit more. I had to really think. When somebody just gives you an answer, you don't know for sure if you're listening or not listening. And it takes a while for your brain to form a memory. So that's why looking things up is helpful. So in the final exam, if you get everything correct and you had to look up answers for a whole bunch of them, that still to me is a success because you've taken the time to learn what that is. So anyway, that will come up. So anyway, that's where we are. So we really only have just a little bit left. So if you guys are behind in any way, shape, or form with your things, by the way, I think we're making really good progress on the final plans. But if you have any issues with those or any problems with them, get with your group if you can. And then if you have problems beyond that, come and talk to me. All right, I separate out service marketing, talking a little bit about this, because marketing a service employs a lot of the same tactics and strategies, certainly the same goals and objectives as we do in general marketing. But when you're marketing a service, it does have a different level of sensibility. I know that when you look at ads for even things like, I'm going to expand this from service to public service to even just informative. I'm going to keep it out of the political realm because political promotions are totally different. Again, they employ a lot of the same things, but they're so different in tone. They're different in pace. Sometimes having to be just absolute movement. They're different in what they're trying to accomplish because they're trying to pass a bill, they're trying to get somebody elected, things like that. We don't even talk about the political side of marketing in this class because it's frankly, it's overwhelming. But on the service side, pace is one that even is a different thing. When you're thinking about United Way, you're thinking about American Cancer Society, you're thinking about some type of service that you're going to be giving. Now, this is beyond service, like, for example, I'm a spa. That's still a commercial service. I'm talking more a public service where it is a nonprofit, it's free. Even just think about all the work that had to be done to promote and educate the public about COVID. That's a massive marketing campaign. That the whole goal of that simply was to get people to wear masks and get vaccinated. There was no money involved, there was nothing like that. So it was not a commercial campaign, it was a public service or a public health campaign. So no matter what you feel about the whole COVID thing, the most important thing is to recognize and just look at some of the things that have been done to promote that, and were they successful? By the way, if you see boxes behind me, we are moving on Saturday to a new house. So it's calamity around here. And if I can find half of what I need, it's quite a big deal. But anyway, okay, so let's look at, pardon me? Oh, yes, Kelly. Didn't Pfizer make a killing off this though? Oh no, no, you're absolutely right. Pfizer, Moderna, all of those were the commercial side of things. Thank you for pointing that out because there's a real difference here. There was not any work done by the people who were pushing to get vaccinations. They were not saying, go get Pfizer, go get Moderna. They didn't do that. They made those widely available. You made your choice. It had nothing to do with that. The government made no money off of it. It was more the, let's see, yeah, the government made no money off of it, but we paid it. Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they all made money. Yes, absolutely. They sold their drugs. So that's different because that's almost a B to government, B2B sort of campaign where they had they had all their vaccines done, and those people were all competing with each other for the dollars to get people to purchase it worldwide. So that is different. I'm talking about the public education campaign to the individuals and all around the world, frankly, not just here in the States, but what's happened in Canada, what's happened around the world. And if you're thinking internationally, sort of what's happened in Germany, Britain, all of those in terms of their efforts to get the public to get it. So that's the difference here. So let's look at this one. This is a case study that it's a few years old, but it's so darn good. I keep trying to replace it with something better, and I haven't found anything that I think is more illustrative than this. So this is a service campaign, and it has the energy of a product campaign or a general marketing campaign, which I really, really like. So it's the positioning in this. So the client, this is a case study that was done by an agency. So what they did is they talked about they lay it out in the client, the market, the program, what we did, what was the success. So that's what this is about. So this was United Way. The market was these counties in Oregon. And the campaign was in 2013, and they still had a great job in terms of using social media. Today, that would even go further. The positioning strategy was to create action, okay? So there was a strategy, meaning that they had a call to action. The biggest failure of public service campaigns is that there's no call to action. They don't say, to learn more about it, go here, or to, you'll see some of these where they're just trying to make some point, but they don't give anybody any next step. If you don't give people that next step, they kind of hear it and go, yeah, now what? This one was to create a form of action. So it builds, so they had 5 calls to action. For business, the annual Tri-County United Way campaign was to raise awareness in dollars, okay? For the audience was employers, workers, individuals, nonprofits, and community leaders. So if any of you work for a big company, you probably get an annual United Way campaign that runs through your business. That doesn't happen without first having the United Way people go to the employers, so they can understand what the campaign is, and they work through with each of the large employers the various times when they might introduce the campaign. Maybe United Way people come out, maybe it's done more quietly, however it's done, so that it matches the ethos of the particular company. So your very first audience for a company, a nonprofit like United Way, is the employer who is helping. It's a strategy they took a long time ago, which really kind of set the tone for a lot of other companies, because there's only a few companies that, a few nonprofits that actually use this strategy to go through employers. Most of the time they go direct to people. They're just to try to get them to donate time or give some dollars or something like that. But this one has just gotten so huge because United Way is so huge. And it covers and encompasses so many different nonprofits that it was one that employers were willing to just get behind. So once the employers were on board, the next audience would be the workers. And through the employers, you get to the workers, and you show the employers what you're going to give the workers to educate them and work with them to help. Then after that, you look at, they had a campaign where they look at individuals as well, and nonprofits, some of the other nonprofits, as well as community leaders. So let's look what their challenge was. And this one, when a case study is written, it's not necessarily written in goals and objectives the way you would do a plan. Case studies are after the fact, and they're written in this challenge, or usually it is like challenge. It's not necessarily optimized, but challenge and tactics, results kind of thing. So it's a way to just sort of summarize what happened. But the United Way in the Tri-County region had weathered some bumpy years. Leadership changes, slow economy, a whole bunch of stuff. New executive director brings strong leadership and fresh commitment to the community. And when he started in a year earlier, he knew he needed a higher level of messaging, awareness, and visibility. He knew he needed to step it up a notch. So Creative Company, which is the agency they talked about, was hired to create the messaging. And so they built the campaign. And that was a really important step for them, because United Way gives their various chapters a lot of leeway as to what they want to do. So that, because United Way will send out some national things that they want them to promote. But in this case, it was a regional campaign. So working with the campaign, having it and building on it was called National Live United theme. So that was the national theme, and their position focused on adding simplicity and calls to action. Okay, let's look at what these were. So here was join the date, save the date for October 3rd, campaign kickoff luncheon. So this is at, a luncheon that's going to be at the location. Join us to learn how you can change 550 or 500 lives when you live united, live united, when you live united to the power of 5. Okay, that didn't roll off the tongue, but when you just read it without me stumbling over it out loud, you kind of go, what? I can save 50 lives, 500 lives? They kind of bring it down to lives. Again, there's that benefit. If I give you money, I give you time, I volunteer, I do these things, I can save lives. Now that could be, for a lot of us, that's going to be compelling enough to do something. I can help conquer cancer. I can teach a child. I can feed 50 children today with my donation. I can keep a child out of poverty. Some kind of really, concrete thing. It's why when you look at a lot of the campaigns for Save the Children, for one, they always are showing these very sad pictures of children, but there are also things like World Wildlife Foundation and other organizations do things like adopt an elephant, and you're never really adopting an elephant, but it personalizes it for you. Save the Children sends you a packet of information about one child. And again, your money's not going directly to that one child. It's being spread over all those children, one of whom is that child, but it personalizes it. When you hear, for example, that there was a tsunami and 10,000 people were killed, it's like 10,000 people is too many for your brain to get around. You're like, wow, what? But when you hear a story of a family who struggled to survive and came out the other side, that one story hits you. So that's the way, and that's the way journalists personalize these kinds of things. They personalize it down to a level where your brain can wrap around it. These kinds of things with the idea of change the lives of these people is part of that personalization. Here's how you can change 550 or 500 plus lives with the power of 5. Okay, so it's a really interesting, it's the 5 action steps that you can take that would make a difference in these people's lives. That again just brings it home. They do a very good job of kind of walking through what those steps are when you look at it here. It's a little bit hard to see, I'm sorry, but it's things like give $5, tell 5 friends, give 5 hours. So again, it's things that are easy. Join 5 people to this program, add 5 more. So it's a way to take baby steps to success. So again, the reason I love this campaign so much is just because the messaging hits home with all the things we try to teach in marketing. Personalized marketing, talk about the benefit to the individual who's going to take action, give them specific action that is action they actually can take. Sometimes there's just, when it's things like call for more information, that's kind of like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that, but call now, give $5 and save a life. Go online and give $5, then tell 5 friends, and you've saved 5 lives. So those are the ways to just sort of make all of this more personal. Nonprofits are fighting for dollars all the time. They're fighting for attention. They're trying to get the word out there, and hopefully they're doing well. I know United Way went through a terrible scandal at one point where, it wasn't good. They kind of shook a lot of people's faith in nonprofits. So that's why the credibility of the message is so important. And it's also exceptionally important in a service, a public service type nonprofit marketing campaign, that you as the marketing person, especially if you're a public relations person, you have a very good handle on how much of the funds go to administration versus actually conducting the service that you're paying for. There are formulas for that it shouldn't be more than 5 to 10 or 15% of it of admin, and all the rest goes to the actual service. If you get higher than that, it's going to really start making, frankly, it'll make your life miserable, and it's wrong because that's too much admin, and they're too top heavy for the money coming in, and you want your money to go to people. That's why things like Red Cross that are out there for all of these emergencies that take place, they're almost like the first responders during emergencies to help house and feed people who have been stranded. They're very, very open about their cost to administer it versus the cost that goes to providing the services. They also are very smart in that they are always visible on site. Media are allowed in. They can talk to Red Cross people. They can talk to the people receiving the services. They want people to be able to see their dollars at work, the donations of blankets, the donations of food. They want to see that at work. And one of the ways you do that, of course, is through social media or through earned media. Don't make that mistake, sure. Earned media, which is public relations. And that's getting in touch with the journalists and the media out there to tell your story for you, because you've provided them with the information to do it and you're a credible source. So all of this wraps around. So you can see the rest of the campaign here. But this whole idea of let's start with 5 reasons. And it just makes it easy to do. You know, I can give $5. That's no big deal. So I think and I even love this graphic when it talks about the 5. So they used a variety of these graphics to help give that and the power of 5. So any thoughts or questions about this? Do you like this example? Is this something, if you were at work and saw something like this and you thought you could help somebody with the power of 5, is it work for you? Is it too corny? What do you think? Anybody? Yeah. 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 So you think about how to compel people. I'm going to give you another example. And this was one that was done not that long ago. And it was done up in Flint, Michigan, of all places. I don't know if you know about Flint, but they're the ones that have all this water trouble too. They've been struggling with that and getting some national news about lead pipes. But this had nothing to do with that. This had to do with a particular public library building. And it was in the city of Flint. And it was a historic building, a wonderful, apparently. I just know the person who did the campaign, so I'm relaying her campaign to you. It was a wonderful old historic building, but it was crumbling, it needed work, it was really in bad shape, and it required some increased taxes to do so. Well, one side of the issue was no taxes, no taxes. No, we're not going to do it. No taxes, no taxes. And they were starting to lose this initiative they had put on the ballot. They were seeing that people were not just not as favorable. They didn't get it. They were concerned about what that would mean. So they decided to start a different campaign. And their campaign was, they went on Facebook and said, we agree, no taxes, let's burn the building and burn the books. And they kept this up for like a couple weeks. We don't need this library. We don't need these books. People went berserk. They're like, what do you mean burn the books? We need that library. Then after they caught everybody's attention with this kind of shock campaign, they said, then you need to fund it. This building is falling apart. If we don't fund it, we will lose it. Do you want this library open? And do you want the books for your kids? Again, it came down to what they wanted the library for, not the taxes. Not, oh my God, we don't want the taxes. I don't want to spend any more money on it. It was about the benefit of the library and what would happen if you didn't do it. And it passed overwhelmingly. And so anyway, it's just the kind of thing where if you just keep saying, but yeah, but then we wouldn't have the library, or whatever argument you might try to do, until you sometimes hit them with a shock factor of what you'd really lose if you didn't do this, it would be a big deal. All right, so there's just a couple of things on service campaigns. Please spend a little time with it if you like. I really thought it was an excellent campaign. All right, I'm shifting gears. We are going to international marketing, global marketing. Now I want to separate this out from global business. Global business is done by the people who are in operations and management and so forth, and they're making their massive decisions about, about where they want to expand and all this sort of stuff. And it's managing the day-to-day business in another country. Okay. What we do in global marketing is we look at we take a completely different look at how to introduce the business and achieve their goals in the countries they want to go into. To do that, one of the first analysis we do, you know how you do the SWOT analysis that you guys have completed, kind of an STP, things like that we do in a country like the United States, where we know our customers. We're just using these to help define and better refine who our company is, our strengths, weaknesses, and the customers we're going after. In the case of global marketing, you do what's called a PEST analysis. It is occasionally called a PESTLE analysis. And I want to take you, this is the assignment actually that I want you to do, but before you do it, I'm going to walk you through this learning resource about it. And if you've read the chapter or you go through it at all, you will see these in the chapter, so you can skim through and find what they are. So a PEST analysis is similar to what we do kind of with the SWOT and the STP sort of merged together. It's understanding where your company will fit in this country, what the competition is, what are the economics, all of that sort of thing. So let's look what PEST stands for. I'm going to go down to here first, and then we'll come back up. So the P is for political. Looking at countries like Thailand, Iran, China, and then Sweden or Bulgaria or Australia. When you think of each of those, you've got a very different political system for most of them. They all have their own idiosyncrasies. They all have their own level of openness or non-openness. They all have different international laws. And you have to understand, if you're going to go to Australia, the political system in Australia versus trying to enter China is going to be exceptionally different. So understanding that's what this is all about, is you're looking at the policies, the regulations, the ability for outside countries to come into China to establish themselves, just better understanding all of that. You're going to have your tax implications, all sorts of things. The economic side of it, the E, is about looking at the key economic factors. Like if you wanted to go into Spain 10 years ago, you had a fairly expensive product. That might have been a big deal because their unemployment rate was exceptionally high. The people basically were not spending on luxury goods, and the economy was way down. So to jump in with a luxury goods item at that time frame into a country that's experiencing that type of economic downturn would be a really failed effort. So understanding that It's all about the whole, you don't have to be an economics person for that, but you basically do need to look at what is the basic economics, where are they in terms of, the exchange rates. We know in Canada to here, those exchange rates fluctuate. Sometimes our dollar could be worth 30 cents more, sometimes theirs is. So, I used to go up and shop in Canada for clothes, not only because did Vancouver have a lot of cool stuff, but it was 30% less and the tax was less. So I was really getting a 30 to 40% discount on every single thing I bought because of the exchange. Okay. Now that impacts a company because if they're going to be bringing something up there, they may lose. I mean, they could lose 30% of their dollar right there. So that's part of it. Supply and demand is there, economic growth, how fast is the country growing? Are they, like I just talked about with the example of Spain, what's the inflation? You go down to Brazil or some of the other places in South America right now, and inflation can be crazy. Inflation is meaning what's the value of your dollar, how much, or your currency, what can your currency buy? When it used to be able to buy a bag of groceries and now it buys half a bag of groceries, that's inflation. It's the same groceries, but a year later it cost twice as much. Okay. And then there's recession. And we know, we went through recession, several times in our situation, in our country. So during the time of Great Recession, it was a very difficult time. People were losing their homes, people were losing cars, they couldn't afford things, and and jobs, and it was just a terrible, difficult time. Now, you need to, so when you look at the E part of this, you're just doing for the assignment, you're just going to be doing a simple summary, kind of look up, what are the economics of Spain today? How is the country faring? How strong is their currency, that kind of thing, compared to the US, because we are a US company. And what this assignment is, this discussion's about, is a US company going into a country. Okay, so that's the E part. The S is social. This is the part that I enjoy the most. See, look at a country like Mexico. Family is everything. Catholic religion is very strong. It bonds and ties communities and families together. Extended families are huge. The idea of family dinners is huge. So understanding that part, and then also music and the importance of their festivals. What are the festivals? How, what's the relationship between men and women there in terms of, can they each have equal pay for equal work? If you have women working there, how is that going to look? One great example is many years ago, a friend of mine did international, she was a software expert and working with a company that had very large software systems that had to be implemented into these different countries. Sorry, not countries, into different companies around the world. And so she traveled everywhere. She traveled to Italy, Brazil, she was in Thailand, she was in all these places. In Italy, it took 4 times as long for the implementation process. And it's not for any fault of hers. It was because of the work ethic in Italy. They work very hard, but there's a lot of family. There's a lot of time, there's siesta time. There's a little shutdown from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock every day. Then they go back and work till 6 or 7. But it is always slower doing business in Italy. The court system's slow, everything is slow. It's just the Italian way, okay? No judgment, it's just who they are. When she was in Thailand, the people within the company would not speak to her or look at her. She had to have an intermediary. So she would be standing there. She would tell her interpreter or intermediary what they had to do. They would tell them, and then they would respect it. They did not respect women enough to allow her to be able to talk directly to the man. So those are the kinds of things that you might say, well, that's just weird. They're just going to have to put up with it, but they're not. They're not necessarily going to put up with it. And understanding that if we're trying to open a business internationally in some other country, you can't bully your way in. You need to work with the existing culture, norms, ethics, and so forth. So thinking about ethics, that's a different culture. So Mexico is very well known for taking graft money to do things. New York City's like that, but there was other places and other countries where you're not going to get things done the legal way. You're going to get things done under the table with funds. Understanding that and recognizing if your company is willing to do that and what that's going to take is a whole different ballgame. It's not illegal in those countries. That's the thing that's weird, if corruption is there. The other thing is things like if you want to go into Germany. If you want to go into Germany with a food product, let's say, the standards of what you have to put on the labels, the kinds of food that can go in, you can't have any GMO, you can't have all sorts of preservatives and things that we have in our food here will not pass muster there. You will not be able to do it. The way you label your product will be different. The regulations you have to go through to ensure that the government will approve your food product. And it isn't just food, it's anything, but I'm just using food as an example. But they're very, very strict about all of those things. And consequently, they have one of the safest food industries in the world. So anyway, but the social is the whole demographics, the lifestyle. What do people do on the weekends? What is important to them? So then the T is the technology side, because some countries are way ahead of us on a technology side. They are, China, we're not even close to the kind of mobile marketing, mobile buying, mobile communications that they do there, and how businesses use information through social media to drive sales. They are so far ahead of us. But yet, if you're going to a country, I'll be the obvious, in Africa, where you might be in a smaller region where they may not have the broadband. They may not have even some of the basics. But yet you Botswana wanted to sell beer. And they had Botswanan beer. And where do they take that to their market? What markets did they want to do? And in Botswana, could they compete with Budweiser and the other people who were there? That's turning the tables a little bit, because that just happened to be a particular business within Botswana that I've studied. But the technology part is really, really important. And sometimes, depending on what you're selling and what you're doing, the technology might be, do they have running water? When you think about some of the stuff that's being sold to the governments in Africa through some of the nonprofits, water filtration systems, new ways to handle sewers, just basic stuff. There's still things that are appropriate, and you need to understand all of that, the technology, the mindset, the thought process, the way people live today. You have to understand all that to make it work. Okay, so that's what PEST stands for, okay? When you go into PESTLE, you'll see this example of Singapore. Singapore is a really interesting market. It's a really interesting market to study. But they do the political, the economic, the social, and the technology the way I had just outlined. But they add in the legal, which is different really than, it's sort of like, it's a deeper dive into regulations and other things along those lines, and the legalities of how do I get my product in, what do I have on my packaging, what kinds of things, what do I do to hire people, I worked with Eddie Bauer when we moved into Germany, and we went into Munich, and we were in that area. We went into another town too, but I helped with München, and opening that location was a really interesting thing, because in Germany, everything stopped at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Everything closed except for absolutely essential, petrol and a few food outlets. Everything, restaurants, everything closed until Monday morning. because the tradition in Germany was that was family time. The beer gardens were open, of course. So we all had fun at the beer gardens, and that was it. I mean, no shopping after 2 o'clock. That was forever until just recently. Within the last few decades, the pressure to compete a little more on globally and to respond to tourists, to do all these, to be more attractive, they have loosened those rules. Now, I do think it's still really hard to shop on Sundays, but I believe Saturday goes a little bit longer. But this is the kind of thing you have to know when you're going into these things. You have to understand that. You have to understand what are your legal ramifications on how you hire people and treat them. There's a lot of legalities to that, and the idea that you legally have to close at 2 on Saturday. So, and then the final one here is environmental. Now, environmental, again, is going to be even more important than ever before as we become more and more aware of the need for action against climate change. And so companies are really looking at that kind of risk of, if I go into Brazil and I'm cutting down the whole forest so that I can, raise cows and we have beef for McDonald's, where does that sit environmentally in all of that? So understanding even all the environmental regulations and everything. So if you look at this one from Singapore, they talk. So first off, I'll stop for a second. Does all that make sense as to how we divide pest and pestle in terms of the different things you look at in a country? Everybody's comfortable with that? Okay, hearing nothing, then I'm going to assume you're all going to do really well on the assignment. So anyway, applications for pests. It is absolutely critical for organizations to understand every one of these things. I mean, honestly, there's not one of them that isn't going to somehow impact the way we market. Okay, so this is all about, if I'm looking to market to people, I got to understand that. We learned that through STP. We learned that through understanding what our company has versus opportunities through the SWOT. But really looking at what is a persona in, Argentina. What is it? What persona are we going for? So understanding that helps when you look at the broad cultural aspects. You really get to understand what drives people. Well, even for example, in China, the Chinese New Year will shut down China for any factory, any business from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on the company. And I learned that when I was manufacturing a product and selling my own product, and we had to get our product requests in way before January so that we could have it all done, so that when January, February comes and it's Chinese New Year and everything shuts down, I'm not sitting there going, how am I going to get my product? So, because there's no going back on that one. I mean, it's it. Chinese New Year's happens. You can't go and beg, borrow, and maybe you could bribe, but the workers go home. They go home. And that is one of the really important traditions. Understanding all of that, understanding what's important, understanding how, even just like in certain countries, will you succeed if you are a female leader? Or would it be better to have a male leader there? That sounds very weird in our standards today, but in other countries, that is important. If you're a company and you want to place like Argentina, and once you hire somebody, oh yes, very, very, very good point. One of the ways that you get really smart about pest or pestle is through connections with people in other countries. When we moved into Eddie Bauer, we hired agents. And the agents found the store location, they did that sort of evaluation and all of that. But we in the corporate office still had to develop the marketing campaign. So working with the agent, doing our own research, working with the new store manager that had been hired, all of these people who could provide us the insights to our research was part of helping us to do the pestle. That was a really good question, because yes, you're rarely going to go into a country without help. I mean, in some countries you won't even be able to. I mean, it's not going to happen. For example, public relations in Japan is done so differently than we do here. When we moved into Japan with an Eddie Bauer store, we hired a PR agency because there was no way I, as the PR director, could have done anything there. I can supply them with the information, give them everything, but the way it's done is so different. It's almost, it crosses right over more into advertising. Buying space and doing that looks like editorial, and it's just a completely different system. So I needed to hire people to do that. So absolutely, management would hire an agent right off the bat and all of that. But then you, as the marketing person, would be looking at how to take advantage of that to make that happen. Okay. Yeah. It would be impossible. There are actually some countries where you absolutely cannot even get in as a company without an agent. They just won't even know what to talk to you. So, and you can't get through government regulations. You can't do, you have to have someone who's going to be able to work the system for you. So, okay. And so that's part of how you get your research. What PEST is what you want to research, what you need to understand to build a good marketing campaign. Okay. So anyway, and then of course you're going to spend a whole lot of time on documents and government, reading newspapers, doing all this sort of stuff. And then you also need to spend time in the country, which is one of the fun things about international marketing, is you need to be there. You need to be there. You need to talk to, you need to walk around with your agent or agents. You need to meet different people. You really need to be part of all of that. And business trips are fun until you're doing them every week, and then they get a little tiresome. So I've been to New York about 300 times because of all of my trips over the last years. I mean, literally being there like every quarter for the last, I can't tell you how many years. So it's fun and I love it and I love doing it, but yeah, business trips get tired. So anyway, it's just, I think it's really, really important for you to take a look at this whole pestle idea. You can use other resources, and you'll see that one of the things I think is really critical when you're filling out your discussion, note, these are short little sentences, bullets. That's all I want. No explanations. If you can't say it in a couple of words, like for example, in Singapore, they're politically stable. They are very stable. In fact, they're kind of very strict. Free trade is, they have a lot of free trade agreements. Level of corruption is very low. That is true. But the overall political risk is also low because they're so strict. The other thing that's important is that there are regulations, even to the point is that you can't chew gum in public. If you even try to do, heaven forbid, you try to throw it away. Yeah, you just said like you go to jail for chewing gum. Absolutely, that is part of it. And one of the things my son did a study abroad, he happened to go to Greece, but in that they use an example of a student that was in a study abroad in Singapore and did something really stupid, got involved in some people doing spray painting. There wasn't a thing they could do with him. They couldn't help him. They couldn't do anything for him. He was punished. It wasn't good. He made it home. He's fine, but it was hell. So, understanding those kinds of things are absolute, it's just critical. And in Singapore, unfortunately, their laws are very strict and there's no way around them. But they have a very resilient economy. It's very much the Asian culture. The literacy levels are very high, very smart people in Singapore. Oh, you've lived in Singapore for 2 years. Tell me come on and talk about it a little bit. Is to prevent littering.
I was just a kid. I was just in kindergarten. Kid? Yeah. But I'm Indonesian. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Singapore is very nice. It's very clean. Yeah. The public transport is like immaculate, very clean, very fast, very efficient.
And everything I've learned of Singapore and of people like yourself who live there, and I know you were young, but it's very safe also.
Very, very safe, yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about walking around when you're walking around New York City at night, you're kind of constantly doing this, I mean, yes. and it's way safer than it used to be, believe me, but it's still not safe. Japan, Singapore, so many of those locations, you just, in Asia, I mean, I swear you could just be standing, I could be as a woman standing in Singapore in the middle of the night and not be afraid.
Definitely, yeah, Singapore is very safe.
Yes, yeah. So from a social standpoint, looking at this, the Asian culture, flexible workforce, let's look even more at what cost of living. Cost of living is high. And here's one of the other things about Singapore, and is that if you are an international worker in Singapore, especially if you're on management level, I know a lot of Microsofters who have gone to Singapore. I have a personal friend who lived there for a few years. And when you move into Singapore, the first thing you do is the cost of help is very low. So you get all these people helping you in your home. You've got people taking your kids to school. You've got cooks, you've got maids, all of this kind of thing. So it's a rich man's lifestyle, a rich person's lifestyle, without having to pay for that. So those are some of the things that are really interesting because of the cost of living being so high. But with Americans coming in, especially with a Microsoft management level, it's a whole different ballgame. So I remember when they moved home, they almost hated it because they had to do all their things themselves again. So anyway, good. Thank you, by the way, for joining in on that discussion a little bit. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. Let's go back then to what the assignment is. Let's see, where was I here? This is learning resource. I have to just go back. Let me move this thing out of the way. Over here, we'll go back to the module and you can work on that discussion, because I'm hoping that you enjoy this one, and that if you do enjoy it, consider taking the international marketing class from me. I'm actually teaching it next quarter on ground, so it's really fun. But I love international marketing. And when we start working on these kinds of things, this is the mini assignment here. When I get in class, discussions just go crazy. It's so much fun. Anyway, so consider it if you're interested in this at all. It's a 200 level class. So I want you to do a pest analysis. So the company is Dunkin' Donuts, and you can look up Dunkin'. They're all over the world. It's just kind of amazing how before I started really diving into this class, I did not realize Dunkin' Donuts was so international, but it is. So, but they're going to open a store in Mexico City. There currently is not one right there. And research, so I want you to research the main political, economic, social, and technological considerations. You do not have to do pestle, just do pest. And remember, we're bullet pointing these kinds of things. But I want you to touch on, when you're in social, religion, family, food, how are they going to respond to this? And you can look at Dunkin' Donuts. In fact, I think I might see if I go to, if I change my screen here, I want to see if I can get there without losing you. Okay. So can you see this, that I'm on the internet right now? Yeah, okay, good. So if you look at Dunkin', and we look at, here, let me get this out of the way here. Got stuff in the way here. Locations, might just do US locations here. And we'll stop at the allow, and I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna see if it'll take me to international. No, okay, so what I have to do is Dunkin' International. Okay, well, here's something about European. Does Dunkin' Donuts have international locations? Oh, boy, do they ever. About us, Dunkin'. So, coffee bean to jelly fillings. This is a snapshot of the various places. Where is their franchises? Learn more, join us, company our mission, locations. Oh, shoot, franchising. Oh, all right. Well, I'm not able to get in here right now. I'm sorry. I don't know why I can't. But if you just look at Dunkin' Donuts, you will find the international page. In fact, I'll put the link in there. into this assignment. But take a look at this assignment, because what I want you to be able to do is go in there and list the consideration for each of the 4 pests, okay? In this one, you do not need to respond to others. I know with some, I do want you, with all discussions, I would like you to respond to others. This is actually a mini assignment. So please look back at, this, go to this global marketing analysis or any other pestle. You can look, these are pest analysis. They're all over the internet. And, help give me a sense of what you see as the key things. Now with Dunkin' Donuts, I'll give you one hint, which is down here, flavor. Flavor is going to be really critical. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Indonesia, they have black cheese donut. Now, would we like that here? No, that's not going to go. How about a date donut in the Middle East, where dates are absolutely prominent? A pork donut. Philippines, nutty ube. I don't know what ube is. Pistachio donuts with saffron. Oh, kimchi. Now a kimchi donut in Korea, to me, that just doesn't mix, but they have it. Throughout Asia, matcha. Now that I would love. And lychee in Indonesia. And there's more and more, but there's international flavors that are absolutely critical to getting people to understand and try their donuts. So the kinds of flavors we have here, some might make it, others will not. You will find this with McDonald's, with the pizza places, with any sort of taco kind of places. Any of these places are going to have vastly different. Starbucks has vastly different coffees in other parts of the world. They may have some of their basics, but they will always have something that is completely tailored to that particular flavor profile that is important to the people in that particular country. So in this case, food will be very important and should be a good part of what you're talking about in the S part of PEST, which is social. Okay. All right, we're at about, where are we? We're about 1:30. So I'm going to put this to a close. Any questions that you might have? Because otherwise, I'm going to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. And I hope you will enjoy doing the PEST program. I find this all fascinating, so I think everybody else does too. Look for your grades. I think I'm fairly caught up on grades, but I'm going to finish off with the retail. I know that the advertising one also. So I'm going to try to get all of that done during some of this downtime with the holiday after Thanksgiving. So any final thoughts? Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and meet in 2 weeks. Contact me with anything in between that you need, and have a good Thanksgiving.